What if everything you thought you knew about the dawn of human civilization was meticulously constructed upon a foundation of sand, deliberately obscuring a monumental truth? What if the annals of history, those carefully curated narratives taught in schools and enshrined in museums, are merely a selective retelling, a convenient fiction designed to maintain a comforting, yet ultimately false sense of understanding? Consider for a moment the very origins of power, the genesis of kingship itself. We speak of ancient pharaohs, Roman emperors, and medieval monarchs, tracing their lineages back through generations. But what if their authority, their very claim to rule, stemmed from something far older, something pre-human, perhaps even extraterrestrial? This isn't a mere hypothetical, a flight of speculative fancy, but a journey into the deepest recesses of our past, guided by whispers from the cradle of civilization itself. Deep within the dusty archives of ancient Mesopotamia, etched into the clay tablets of the Sumerian King List, lies a record so perplexing, so profoundly disruptive to our accepted timelines, that it is often relegated to the realm of myth or allegory. Yet, its existence, its undeniable physicality, challenges us to look beyond the surface. This isn't just a list of names, it's a testament, a historical artifact that speaks of rulers who reigned not for decades or centuries, but for millennia. These were the kings, 13 of them, who presided over humanity in a period so ancient, so utterly beyond our conventional understanding of recorded time, that their very presence shatters the linear progression we typically assign to history. They ruled before the Great Flood, a cataclysmic event that reshaped the world, and their stories are intertwined with the enigmatic figures known only as the Anunnaki. Who were these Anunnaki? Were they gods, as the Sumerians believed, descending from the heavens to guide or perhaps even engineer nascent humanity? Or were they something else entirely? Visitors from distant stars, possessed of technologies and knowledge far beyond anything our early ancestors could comprehend? The very word Anunnaki resonates with an almost alien power, conjuring images of celestial beings, creators and overseers. It's a term that has become synonymous with a radical reinterpretation of human origins, suggesting that our lineage might not be as purely terrestrial as we've been led to believe. The implications are staggering, inviting us to question everything from our genetic makeup to the very purpose of our existence on this blue marble hurtling through space. This introduction, this tantalizing glimpse into a forgotten age, is merely the tip of a colossal iceberg. It sets the stage for a narrative that promises to unravel threads of history so ancient, so profoundly impactful, that they might just redefine what it means to be human. It's a story whispered across millennia, one that speaks of powerful entities, extraordinary lifespans, and a legacy that continues to shape our world, often without our conscious awareness. If this beginning already has you rethinking what you believe to be true, imagine the revelations that await. So go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because here every video unearths truths that few dare to examine, exposing layers of reality hidden in plain sight. The journey to understand these pre-Diluvian monarchs and their connection to the Anunnaki begins not with a grand revelation, but with the painstaking work of archaeologists and linguists, their hands dusty from ancient earth and their minds grappling with symbols etched into clay. It was in the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, specifically the region of ancient Sumer, that humanity first coalesced into complex societies, developing writing, monumental architecture, and sophisticated systems of governance. And among the myriad of artifacts unearthed from these venerable sites, few provoke as much fascination and bewilderment as the Sumerian King List. Discovered in various fragments, most notably the Weld-Blundell prism now housed at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, this cuneiform document is far more than a simple registry of rulers. It's a chronological account, beginning with the earliest kings, those who reigned before the flood and extending through various dynasties. But it is the initial entries, those that precede the cataclysmic deluge, that truly confound conventional historians and ignite the imaginations of alternative researchers. Imagine the quiet awe, the profound sense of discovery, as scholars first translated these ancient wedges, slowly deciphering the narrative of a time long lost. They weren't just reading names, they were peering through a window into a world that should, by all accounts, not exist. The list systematically names cities where kingship was held, then the kings themselves, and crucially, their astonishingly long reigns. We're not talking about kings who ruled for 50 or 60 years. These figures are attributed reigns stretching for tens of thousands of years. Consider Alulim, the first king of Eridu, who is said to have ruled for 2800 years, or Enmen-Lu-Ana from Bad Tibira, whose reign allegedly spanned a mind-boggling 43,200 years. These numbers are so far outside the realm of human experience, so impossibly vast, that they immediately raise a multitude of questions. Were these literal years, or perhaps a different unit of time that has been misunderstood? Or, and this is where the narrative takes a truly radical turn, were these beings not entirely human, or at least not human as we currently define ourselves? The Sumerian King List explicitly states, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu, Medesu. This phrase is not a mere poetic flourish. It's a foundational statement, anchoring the very concept of kingship to a celestial, non-earthly origin. It implies a direct intervention, a bestowal of authority, and perhaps even presence from entities beyond our world. This idea is central to understanding the Anunnaki. The Sumerians firmly believed that their gods, the Anunnaki, who from heaven to earth came, were intimately involved in the establishment of human civilization. They were revered as bringers of knowledge, law, and even agriculture. The King List, then, becomes a crucial piece of evidence, potentially linking these legendary, incredibly long-lived rulers directly to these celestial beings, presenting them as either direct descendants, designated representatives, or perhaps even the Anunnaki themselves, taking on the mantle of earthly governance. The very act of engraving these names, these numbers into enduring clay, suggests a profound belief in their authenticity, a conviction that these were not mere fables, but an essential chronicle of their foundational past. The scribes, with their intricate knowledge of cuneiform, meticulously recorded what they understood to be the truth, a truth passed down through generations, preserved against the ravages of time. The sheer scale of these reigns, coupled with the assertion of divine descent, creates an undeniable tension between our modern, rational understanding of history and the ancient worldview that birthed these narratives. The King List is not just a relic, it's a challenge, an invitation to confront the limits of our current historical paradigm and to consider possibilities that conventional academia often dismisses. The enigmatic nature of the incredibly extended lifespans attributed to the pre-Diluvian kings on the Sumerian King List forms the bedrock of our inquiry into the Anunnaki bloodlines. How could beings, ostensibly inhabiting the same planet and under the same celestial influences, live for tens of thousands of years? This question gnaws at the edges of historical understanding, refusing to be neatly categorized or dismissed as simple mythological exaggeration. For comparison, consider the biblical patriarchs, figures like Methuselah, said to have lived for 969 years. While remarkably long by modern standards, even these extraordinary lifespans pale in comparison to the 28,800 or 43,200 years attributed to the Sumerian kings. The sheer magnitude of the discrepancy demands a deeper exploration. Were these numbers purely symbolic, perhaps representing dynasties or epochs rather than individual reigns? Some conventional scholars lean towards this interpretation, suggesting that the massive numbers served to convey the great antiquity and divine authority of kingship itself, rather than literal biological longevity. They argue that early Mesopotamian societies might have used different calendrical systems or numerical expressions that are now lost to us, or that the numbers simply grew larger with each retelling, imbued with mythical significance. However, for those who dare to consider alternative explanations, the possibility of literal, extraordinary lifespans takes on a much more compelling character. If these kings were indeed connected to the Anunnaki, as the Sumerian texts imply, then their extended existence might be a direct consequence of that connection. The Anunnaki, described as gods who descended from the heavens, were inherently portrayed as beings superior to humans, possessing abilities and characteristics far beyond the mortal realm. Longevity, even immortality, is a common attribute of deities across various mythologies. But what if this longevity was not purely magical, but rather rooted in a different biological or technological reality? Could the Anunnaki have possessed advanced genetic capabilities, allowing them to extend their own lifespans, and perhaps to imbue those they chose to rule with similar properties? This leads to the provocative hypothesis that these pre-Diluvian kings were not fully human in the way we understand it today. They might have been hybrids, direct offspring of the Anunnaki and early human females, or perhaps genetically engineered individuals designed for the specific purpose of governing a nascent humanity. The very concept of bloodlines takes on a profound new meaning here, suggesting a literal biological inheritance of extraordinary traits, including extended longevity, wisdom, and a profound connection to the heavens. Imagine the psychological impact such beings would have had on early human populations. A ruler who lives for tens of thousands of years would accrue an unimaginable wealth of knowledge, experience, and strategic foresight. Their decisions would be informed by observations spanning countless human generations, granting them an unparalleled perspective on the cycles of nature, the evolution of society, and the very fabric of existence. Such a figure would indeed be seen as divine, a living bridge between the mortal realm and the cosmic order. The scientific world, of course, has no framework to explain such lifespans within current biological understanding. Yet the persistent narratives across cultures, from the Sumerian King List to the biblical accounts and even ancient Indian Puranas, which also speak of extraordinarily long-lived sages and rulers, beg us to consider if there might be a kernel of truth obscured by layers of time and interpretation. Is it possible that the immortality or extreme longevity attributed to these figures was a result of technologies we haven't yet rediscovered or understood? Perhaps cellular regeneration, advanced medical techniques, or even a different physiological makeup allowed for such sustained existence. The very concept of time itself, as perceived by these potential Anunnaki or their direct descendants, might have been different, less constrained by the rapid decay that defines human existence. The silence from mainstream science on these specific historical claims is deafening, often preferring to categorize them as mere fiction rather than grappling with their implications. But the data points, the ancient records, persist, challenging us to expand our conceptual horizons and to consider that our understanding of what is biologically possible might be severely limited by our current state of knowledge. The notion of Anunnaki bloodlines, therefore, is not just about tracing a lineage, it's about understanding a fundamental, perhaps alien, difference in physiology and capability that set these ancient kings apart, establishing a precedent for power and authority that resonates even into our modern era. One cannot delve into the mysteries of the Anunnaki and their ancient bloodlines without inevitably encountering the provocative theories surrounding their initial arrival on Earth and their purported purpose here. The most widely popularized narrative, largely championed by the late author Zecharia Sitchin, posits that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings from a distant planet in our solar system, often referred to as Nibiru. According to Sitchin's interpretation of Sumerian texts, these beings arrived on Earth approximately 450,000 years ago, driven by a desperate need for gold. Their own planet, so the theory goes, faced atmospheric degradation, and gold dust, when suspended in its upper atmosphere, could serve as a protective shield. And where did they find this precious resource in abundance? Right here on Earth. Imagine, if you will, the pristine, untamed Earth of hundreds of millennia ago. A vibrant, verdant sphere, teeming with nascent life, but largely devoid of sentient, tool-wielding creatures. Then, from the heavens, sleek metallic crafts descend, slicing through the primeval atmosphere, their advanced technology a stark contrast to the nascent biological evolution unfolding below. These were the Anunnaki, a sophisticated, perhaps even regal civilization from another world, setting foot on our planet not as conquerors, but as prospectors. Their initial settlements, according to the narrative, were established in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, specifically in the Eridu region, which the Sumerian King List identifies as the site where kingship descended from heaven. Here, they began their arduous task, mining gold. This labor, however, was immense and physically taxing. The Anunnaki, though powerful, were apparently not immune to the rigors of manual excavation. This created a dilemma: how to efficiently extract the vast quantities of gold they required without overexhausting their own workforce. The solution, as interpreted by Sitchin and others, is perhaps the most audacious claim in this entire narrative. They decided to create a subservient species, a worker class, to undertake the heavy labor. This is where humanity, as we know it, allegedly enters the scene. Using their advanced genetic knowledge, the Anunnaki are said to have taken the existing hominid species on Earth, Homo erectus, or a similar ancestor, and genetically modified them. By blending their own DNA, or a portion of it, with that of the indigenous Earth creatures, they accelerated evolution, creating Homo sapiens, a being intelligent enough to follow instructions, capable of complex tasks, yet subservient to its creators. This act of genetic engineering, if true, fundamentally reshapes our understanding of evolution and our place in the cosmos. It implies that humanity is not merely the product of blind natural selection, but rather a deliberate creation, a hybrid species with an ancestral link to beings from another world. This concept is closely tied to the biblical narrative of the Nephilim, often translated as giants or those who fell. Genesis 6:4 states, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. These were the heroes of old, people of renown." Naite, could the sons of God be interpreted as the Anunnaki and the daughters of humans as the genetically modified hominids? The offspring, the heroes of old, could then be the very first members of these Anunnaki bloodlines, individuals possessing a unique blend of terrestrial and extraterrestrial genetics, endowed with superior intellect, strength, and perhaps even those extended lifespans recorded in the Sumerian King List. The idea that ancient texts, from Sumerian clay tablets to Hebrew scriptures, might be recording literal accounts of genetic manipulation and interspecies breeding is, for many, an uncomfortable truth. It challenges deeply held beliefs about creation, spirituality, and the very uniqueness of humanity. Yet the consistent parallels, the recurring themes of divine intervention, celestial beings, and the genesis of extraordinary individuals form a compelling pattern. If the Anunnaki needed gold, and they created humanity to mine it, then the initial kings, those who ruled for thousands of years, might have been the direct overseers of these operations, the immediate descendants of the Anunnaki creators, or even the Anunnaki themselves. Their rule would have been one of direct authority, guiding, instructing, and perhaps even demanding worship from their newly forged human workforce. This narrative paints a vastly different picture of early civilization, one not of gradual ascent from primitive hunter-gatherer societies, but of a guided, accelerated development under the tutelage or dominion of an advanced extraterrestrial intelligence. It raises profound questions about the nature of our free will, the origins of our innate drives, and the lingering echoes of a forgotten genetic legacy that might still resonate within us. Have you ever considered such an audacious interpretation of our history? What would it mean for your understanding of humanity if this detail proved to be true? Comment below if this connection between gold, genetic engineering, and the Nephilim has ever surprised you or crossed your mind. It's a concept that radically redefines the very essence of human origins, pushing us to ponder the deep implications of our alleged connection to these ancient celestial beings. The Great Flood, a cataclysmic event described in countless ancient cultures across the globe, stands as an undeniable geological and mythological divider in the narrative of the Anunnaki bloodlines and the pre-Diluvian kings. In the Sumerian King List, it marks a stark cessation, a moment of profound disruption where the flood swept over the land, wiping away the cities and the impossibly long rains that preceded it. This event is not merely a biblical tale, it is a pervasive motif woven into the very fabric of human history, found in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Indian Puranas, Native American legends, and numerous other ancient traditions. The consistency of this narrative, despite the vast geographical and cultural distances, suggests a common memory, a shared trauma etched into the collective consciousness of humanity. Imagine the world teetering on the brink, not just of a massive storm, but of an existential crisis. The reasons for the flood, as recounted in ancient texts, often involve divine displeasure or a cosmic realignment. In the Sumerian accounts, the Anunnaki Council, growing weary of humanity's ever-increasing noise, or perhaps its rebellious nature, decides to cleanse the earth. But a benevolent Anunnaki, Enki, or Ea, takes pity on one human, Ziusudra, the Sumerian equivalent of Noah, instructing him to build a great boat to save himself, his family, and various animal species. This divine intervention underscores the continuous, albeit complex, relationship between the Anunnaki and their human creation. It wasn't a complete abandonment, but rather a severe judgment, a reset button for a civilization that had perhaps veered too far off course. The flood, therefore, served as more than just a natural disaster. It was a profound turning point, an event of cosmic significance that forever altered the trajectory of human development and the direct presence of the Anunnaki on Earth. After the waters receded, after the world had been purged and reshaped, the Sumerian King List picks up again, stating, "After the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven a second time, the kingship was in Kish." Until this pivotal phrase is laden with significance. It implies that the Anunnaki, or at least their system of governance and selection of rulers, did not entirely abandon humanity. Kingship, the very structure of authority, was re-established, and crucially, it still descended from heaven. This suggests a continued, albeit perhaps more indirect, involvement of the Anunnaki in the affairs of mankind. The post-Diluvian kings, while still attributed with unusually long reigns compared to modern humans, exhibit lifespans significantly shorter than their pre-flood predecessors. We see reigns of a few hundred years rather than tens of thousands. This reduction in longevity is a critical detail. What caused this change? Did the flood itself alter the planetary conditions, making such extreme lifespans impossible? Or did the Anunnaki, in their wisdom, or perhaps their judgment, withdraw some of their direct genetic influence, allowing humanity to develop more independently, albeit still under a watchful eye? The flood effectively reset the global stage, wiping clean the slate of a pre-existing civilization that had presumably reached a certain level of advancement, possibly even under direct Anunnaki guidance. The rebuilding of civilization after such a global catastrophe would have been an immense undertaking, requiring immense resilience and perhaps even a renewed sense of purpose. The survivors, descendants of Ziusudra and other pockets of humanity, would have faced a devastated world, forcing them to start anew, albeit with the memories and perhaps the genetic legacy of their pre-Diluvian ancestors. This act of reseeding civilization, with kingship once again bestowed from heaven, underscores the enduring theme of external guidance in human development. It suggests that even after a global purge, the Anunnaki, or their legacy, remained intricately woven into the fabric of human governance and destiny. The flood, therefore, becomes not an end, but a transition, a violent punctuation mark that separates one era of Anunnaki interaction from another. It reinforces the idea that humanity, far from being an isolated experiment, has been the subject of ongoing attention and perhaps even manipulation from intelligences beyond our terrestrial sphere. The very act of documenting this shift, this dramatic before and after in the Sumerian King List, lends an almost scientific weight to the ancient claims, challenging us once more to consider the possibility that these narratives are not merely myths, but echoes of a profound and forgotten history. The cyclical nature of catastrophe and rebirth, guided by unseen hands, forms a crucial chapter in the grand saga of the Anunnaki bloodlines. Following the cataclysmic cleansing of the Great Flood, a new chapter unfolded in the saga of kingship, as meticulously chronicled by the Sumerian King List. While the impossibly vast reigns of the pre-Diluvian monarchs were now a thing of the past, the kings who succeeded them, the post-Diluvian rulers, still possessed an aura of extraordinary longevity and immense power that sets them apart from the human monarchs we typically study in conventional history. The statement, after the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven a second time, the kingship was in Kish, is profoundly significant. It reiterates the notion that authority, the very right to rule, was not a human invention, but a celestial gift, reappearing on Earth even after a global reset. This continuity of divine endorsement suggests an unbroken chain, a persistent influence of the Anunnaki or their established system, even if their direct physical presence might have diminished. Consider the early post-Diluvian kings listed, such as Jushur from Kish, who reigned for 1,200 years, or his successor Kulasina-Bel for 960 years. While these numbers are dramatically reduced from the tens of thousands of years attributed to their pre-flood counterparts, they still represent lifespans far beyond any known human capacity. What does this signify? It suggests a continued, albeit perhaps diluted, genetic or technological advantage. If the pre-Diluvian kings were direct hybrids or even Anunnaki themselves, the post-Diluvian rulers might represent subsequent generations, whose Anunnaki genetic markers were still strong enough to grant them extended lifespans, superior intellect, and perhaps a deeper connection to the knowledge and wisdom passed down from their celestial ancestors. These kings were not just figureheads, they were the architects of a reborn civilization. After the chaos and devastation of the flood, humanity needed strong, wise, and long-lived leaders to guide the immense task of rebuilding. These individuals, with their extended lifespans, would have provided stability, continuity of knowledge, and a sense of divine purpose to their burgeoning societies. They would have been living repositories of ancient wisdom, remembering the world before the flood, or at least having direct access to those who did. The cities that rose from the post-flood mud, like Kish, Uruk, Ur, and Lagash, became centers of innovation and governance, laying the groundwork for what we now understand as early civilization. It was under the guidance of these long-lived kings that monumental architecture, intricate irrigation systems, sophisticated legal codes, and the very concept of urban living flourished. The legend of Gilgamesh, a powerful king of Uruk, often considered a historical figure despite his epic adventures, is particularly illustrative. He is described as two-thirds god and one-third human, a clear testament to the pervasive belief in divine human hybridity within these ancient bloodlines. His quest for immortality, his encounters with celestial beings, and his extraordinary feats of strength and wisdom all point to a legacy that transcended ordinary humanity. He embodies the very essence of these post-Diluvian rulers, powerful, long-lived, and intimately connected to both the earthly and the celestial realms. The legacy of these post-Diluvian kings is therefore twofold. On one hand, they represent the gradual humanization of kingship, as lifespans eventually continued to shorten, drawing closer to what we consider normal human longevity. This could be interpreted as the Anunnaki slowly withdrawing their direct intervention, allowing humanity to mature and develop its own destiny. On the other hand, they solidified the concept of divine right to rule, establishing a precedent that would echo through millennia of human history. The idea that a ruler's authority was divinely sanctioned, that their bloodline carried a special grace or wisdom, became deeply ingrained in the collective consciousness. This belief system, born in the Fertile Crescent, spread its tendrils across continents and cultures, influencing countless monarchies from ancient Egypt to imperial Rome and beyond. The very notion of royalty, of a ruling class distinct from the common populace, often found its justification in claims of superior lineage, echoes of these ancient Anunnaki bloodlines. The names and reigns recorded on the Sumerian King List, therefore, are not just dusty artifacts. They are foundational documents that reveal a profound, albeit mysterious, period of human history, where the line between the divine and the mortal was blurred, and where kings walked the earth, bearing the undeniable, if enigmatic, marks of a celestial heritage. Their achievements, their systems of governance, and their enduring legends all point to a time when humanity was guided by individuals whose very existence challenged the boundaries of what we understand to be possible. The concept of royal bloodlines, those sacred lineages claiming a divine right to rule, did not simply appear out of thin air. Its roots plunged deep into the fertile soil of ancient Mesopotamia, directly into the narrative surrounding the Anunnaki and their long-lived kings. The Sumerian King List, with its declaration of kingship descending from heaven, provided the foundational blueprint for this enduring belief. It established the powerful precedent that legitimate authority originated not from the will of the people, nor from military might alone, but from a celestial source, a divine mandate bestowed upon specific individuals and their descendants. This idea, once firmly entrenched in the cradle of civilization, began to spread its influence, shaping political and social structures across the ancient world and continuing to resonate through the ages, even into the modern era. Consider the pharaohs of ancient Egypt. They were not merely rulers, they were considered living gods, direct intermediaries between humanity and the divine pantheon. Their elaborate burial rituals, their monumental pyramids, and their absolute authority were all predicated on this belief in their divine essence. While the specific deities differed, the underlying principle of a ruler embodying the divine, of a bloodline distinct and superior to the common populace, bears in striking resemblance to the Sumerian concept. Could the Egyptian understanding of divine pharaohs be a cultural adaptation, a direct or indirect echo of the Anunnaki-influenced kingship of their Mesopotamian neighbors? The very architecture of their power, the rigid hierarchical structure with the pharaoh at its apex, mirrored a system where authority flowed from the heavens downward. Similarly, in various cultures, from the emperors of China who claimed the mandate of heaven, to the divine emperors of Japan, whose lineage is traced back to the sun goddess Amaterasu, the theme of celestial origin for royal authority persists. It is a universal human impulse, perhaps, to seek ultimate justification for power in something beyond the mundane. But what if these cultural expressions are not merely independent mythological developments, but rather distant reverberations of a singular foundational event, the initial descent of kingship from the heavens, as recorded by the Sumerians? The bloodline aspect is critical here. It implies a hereditary transmission of this divine mandate, a literal passing down of a special quality, an intrinsic superiority that legitimizes the rule of successive generations. This is where the concept of Anunnaki bloodlines becomes particularly potent. If the earliest kings were indeed hybrids, possessing Anunnaki DNA, then their descendants, even if diluted over millennia, would still carry a trace of that extraordinary heritage. This genetic predisposition, whether real or perceived, could have been leveraged to maintain power and justify their elevated status. The idea wasn't just that a king was chosen by God, it was that the blood of the king made him worthy of that choice. This evolution from mythical, impossibly long-lived rulers to human monarchs claiming divine ancestry showcases a fascinating transition. As the Anunnaki's direct presence allegedly receded and the extraordinary lifespans waned, the memory of their influence, the legacy of their intervention, remained. This memory was crystallized into the doctrine of divine right, a powerful ideological tool that sustained monarchies for millennia. Even in Europe, centuries later, kings and queens would claim their authority was God-given, that they were divinely appointed to rule, and that their lineage was intrinsically special. While this later interpretation focused on the Abrahamic God, the underlying psychological and political function, the sanctification of power through celestial connection, remained strikingly similar to the ancient Mesopotamian model. The royal courts, the elaborate rituals, the symbols of power, scepters, crowns, thrones, all served to reinforce this separation between the divinely chosen ruler and the common subject. It created an unbridgeable gap, a chasm of status justified by an appeal to the highest authority imaginable. The lingering question, then, is not merely whether the Anunnaki existed, but whether their initial intervention, their establishment of these first heavenly bloodlines, set in motion a chain of historical events and ideological constructs that continue to shape our understanding of power, hierarchy, and destiny, even in a world that largely dismisses such ancient claims as mere myth. The very structure of our societies, the way we perceive authority, might carry the faint yet indelible imprint of these ancient celestial origins. If the Anunnaki indeed played a foundational role in human civilization, establishing the first royal bloodlines and bestowing kingship from the heavens, it is a logical, albeit unsettling, progression to ponder the continuation of their influence beyond direct rule. What happens when a powerful, technologically advanced and perhaps genetically superior intelligence recedes from public view, but still retains an interest or even a vested stake in the affairs of its creation? This question leads us into the shadowy realm of hidden knowledge and secret societies, realms where whispers of ancient bloodlines and cosmic agendas persist, echoing down through millennia. The core premise is this: if the Anunnaki imparted advanced knowledge and established a system of governance through their chosen bloodlines, it is highly improbable that this knowledge and lineage would simply vanish after the Great Flood or with the gradual humanization of kingship. Instead, it might have gone underground, preserved and guarded by select groups, forming the basis of esoteric traditions and clandestine organizations. Imagine the vast repository of scientific, technological, and spiritual insights that an advanced extraterrestrial civilization would possess. Knowledge of astronomy, engineering, medicine, and perhaps even the very mechanics of consciousness itself. This wouldn't simply be forgotten. It would become the most coveted treasure, entrusted only to the initiated, to those deemed worthy by virtue of their lineage, their intellect, or their unwavering loyalty to a hidden agenda. This is where the narratives of secret societies begin to intertwine with the Anunnaki hypothesis. Groups like the Illuminati, the Knights Templar, or Freemasonry, often shrouded in mystery and rife with conspiracy theories, are sometimes linked to an ancient lineage of knowledge, tracing their roots back to pre-Christian, pre-Roman, or even pre-Diluvian sources. Could the light or illumination sought by some of these groups be a metaphor for this hidden Anunnaki knowledge? Could their complex rituals, their arcane symbols, and their hierarchical structures be remnants of ancient Anunnaki teachings preserved and passed down through generations? The very concept of bloodlines takes on a chilling new dimension here. If these secret societies indeed trace their origins to the earliest royal families, those claiming Anunnaki descent, then their members might view themselves as the rightful inheritors of this hidden knowledge, and perhaps the rightful custodians of humanity's destiny. This perspective transforms them from mere conspirators into the unwitting or knowing agents of a vastly older, non-human agenda. The goal in this interpretation is not simply power for power's sake, but the maintenance of a specific global order, one that might align with the long-term objectives of their alleged Anunnaki ancestors. This could involve shaping political systems, influencing economic structures, controlling media narratives, and even subtly directing scientific and technological development, all to steer humanity along a predetermined path. The concept of manipulation takes on an entirely new meaning when viewed through this lens. It's not just about individual greed or ambition, it's about the execution of a multi-millennial plan initiated by non-human intelligences and carried forward by their human descendants. The symbolism often associated with these groups, the all-seeing eye, pyramids, celestial bodies, can be reinterpreted as veiled references to their Anunnaki heritage and their cosmic connection. They might serve as subtle signals to the initiated or as constant reminders of their ultimate allegiance to a higher, unseen power. While such theories remain highly speculative and often dismissed by mainstream academia as mere conjecture, their persistent presence in cultural discourse suggests a deep-seated human curiosity, a nagging suspicion that there is more to our history than meets the eye. The very idea that certain powerful families or institutions might possess a hidden lineage, a secret wisdom, and an agenda dating back to the dawn of civilization is profoundly unsettling. It challenges our notions of free will, democracy, and self-determination. It suggests that humanity might be operating within a carefully constructed illusion, a grand stage managed by unseen players who trace their origins not to earthly monarchs, but to celestial beings who once walked among us, planting the seeds of kingship and knowledge, and perhaps retaining a quiet dominion over the subsequent unfolding of human destiny. The question remains, are these secret societies merely human constructs seeking power, or are they the last lingering guardians of an Anunnaki legacy, quietly guiding the course of our planet toward an unknown, preordained future? In the vast expanse of academic discourse, the narrative of the Anunnaki bloodlines and the pre-Diluvian kings, with their impossibly long reigns and celestial origins, occupies a peculiar and often contentious position. Mainstream archaeology, history, and anthropology largely view these claims as mythological, metaphorical, or at best, products of ancient religious beliefs. They emphasize the absence of direct, verifiable archaeological evidence for extraterrestrial visitation or literal genetic manipulation of early humans. The prevailing academic paradigm, deeply rooted in empirical observation and the scientific method, struggles to reconcile the fantastic claims of the Sumerian King List with its understanding of human biological evolution and the development of early societies, When confronted with the extended lifespans of the pre-Diluvian kings, conventional scholars typically offer several interpretations. As previously noted, some suggest the numbers are symbolic, representing dynasties or epochs rather than individual reigns, perhaps an ancient way of conveying the immense antiquity and divine authority of kingship itself. Others propose that different calendrical systems were in use, leading to a misinterpretation of years. For instance, a year might have been a much shorter period, or perhaps the numbers were amplified through oral tradition, gaining mythological weight with each retelling. The concept of kingship descending from heaven is often interpreted as a metaphor for the divine inspiration or blessing sought by rulers to legitimize their power, rather than a literal arrival from outer space. The Anunnaki themselves are categorized as deities within the polytheistic Sumerian pantheon, powerful anthropomorphic gods who personified natural forces or held sway over specific aspects of human life, much like the Greek Olympians or the Norse Aesir. From this perspective, their stories are rich mythological narratives that provided meaning, structure, and moral guidance to ancient societies, reflecting their cosmology and their relationship with the divine, but not literal historical accounts of alien visitation. However, against this backdrop of skepticism and rationalization, a vibrant and increasingly vocal community of alternative researchers, independent scholars, and enthusiasts continues to champion the Anunnaki hypothesis. They argue that the sheer consistency and specificity of the Sumerian texts, when combined with parallel narratives in other ancient cultures, cannot be so easily dismissed as mere myth. They highlight anomalies in ancient history, unexplained technological advancements, and the perplexing speed of human civilization's emergence, suggesting that these phenomena point to an external, non-terrestrial intervention. The meticulous detail of the Sumerian King List, its clear distinction between pre-flood and post-flood reigns, and the precise numbers assigned to each ruler are seen not as poetic exaggerations, but as attempts to record a literal, albeit extraordinary, history. For these proponents, the Anunnaki hypothesis offers a more cohesive and comprehensive explanation for a wide range of historical, archaeological, and even genetic puzzles that mainstream science either ignores or struggles to adequately explain within its current framework. The debate between these two perspectives often plays out in academic journals, online forums, and documentary series, creating a fascinating tension. Mainstream academia critiques the alternative theories for their lack of empirical evidence, their reliance on selective interpretations of ancient texts, and their tendency to draw conclusions that go beyond what the archaeological record can definitively prove. Conversely, alternative researchers accuse mainstream institutions of intellectual rigidity, an unwillingness to consider paradigm-shifting possibilities, and a dogmatic adherence to established narratives that may stifle true discovery. This ongoing intellectual conflict underscores a fundamental question. How do we interpret the past? Is it solely through the lens of modern scientific rationality, or should we also consider the possibility that ancient peoples, despite their limited technology, were recording truths that our current understanding cannot yet fully grasp? The profound implications of the Anunnaki hypothesis extend far beyond mere historical curiosity. If even a fraction of these claims were true, if humanity's origins are indeed tied to extraterrestrial genetic engineering, if ancient kings were literal hybrids with extended lifespans, and if their bloodlines continue to subtly influence our world, then our entire understanding of human identity, purpose, and destiny would be irrevocably altered. It would force a radical re-evaluation of our place in the universe, our relationship with other intelligent species, and the very nature of evolution itself. The current scientific paradigm, while immensely powerful in its own domain, may simply lack the conceptual tools to fully comprehend such an audacious chapter in our past. The lingering questions persist, demanding our attention and inviting us to look beyond the confines of conventional wisdom, to consider that the truth about our ancient ancestors might be far stranger and far more profound than we have ever dared to imagine. The tapestry of ancient history, rich with the threads of myth, legend, and tantalizing archaeological finds, leaves us with a myriad of profound and lingering questions regarding the Anunnaki bloodlines and the kings who ruled before history. Despite rigorous academic scrutiny and the passionate advocacy of alternative theories, definitive answers remain elusive, leaving the door wide open for continued speculation and tireless investigation. Were the Anunnaki truly celestial beings, advanced extraterrestrials who descended upon Earth, initiating human civilization and establishing the very concept of kingship? Or were they merely powerful metaphors, personifications of natural phenomena, or ancient tribal leaders whose stories grew embellished with divine attributes over countless generations? The sheer scale of the reigns attributed to the pre-Diluvian kings, those tens of thousands of years of uninterrupted rule, remains a formidable enigma. Is it a literal account of biologically engineered longevity, a testament to a physiological reality far beyond our current understanding? Or does it represent a symbolic chronology, a poetic device to convey the immense antiquity and divine legitimacy of their rule, perhaps using a numerical system that has been lost to the annals of time? These are not trivial academic puzzles. They are fundamental inquiries that challenge the very foundations of our accepted history. The implications of these unanswered questions reverberate across disciplines. If the Anunnaki did genetically engineer early hominids to create Homo sapiens, then the entire edifice of evolutionary biology, as currently understood, would require a radical re-examination. It would mean that humanity is not merely the product of blind natural selection, but rather a deliberate creation, a hybrid species with an ancestral link to beings from another world. This notion would profoundly alter our understanding of human identity, our innate drives, and our place in the cosmic order. It would force us to confront the possibility that our origins are far more complex and far less terrestrial than we have been led to believe. The idea of bloodlines takes on a monumental significance here. If specific lineages truly carry a genetic trace of Anunnaki heritage, endowing them with superior intellect, longer lifespans, or an inherent connection to hidden knowledge, then the historical trajectory of power, influence, and societal structure might be intricately tied to these ancient genetic legacies. Could this explain the persistent presence of certain powerful families or the recurring patterns of leadership throughout history? Is it possible that the subtle echoes of these ancient bloodlines continue to shape global events, influencing decision-makers from behind the scenes, perpetuating an agenda that stretches back to the dawn of recorded time? These questions compel us to look at ancient texts, archaeological artifacts, and even our own genetic code with fresh eyes. What if the myths are not mere fables, but fragmented memories of actual historical events, shrouded in metaphor and allegory due to the limitations of ancient language or the deliberate obfuscation of powerful knowledge? What if the monuments and technologies of ancient civilizations, whose construction still baffles modern engineers, are remnants of Anunnaki tutelage, tangible proof of an advanced intervention? The very act of asking these questions, of daring to challenge the established narrative, is a testament to the enduring power of these ancient stories. They tap into a deep-seated human curiosity about our origins, a longing to understand where we come from and why we are here. The pursuit of these answers pushes the boundaries of conventional thought, forcing us to consider possibilities that defy easy categorization and demand a complete reorientation of our historical perspective. The mysteries surrounding the Anunnaki bloodlines and the kings who ruled before history are not just about uncovering a forgotten past. They are about redefining our future, about understanding the true potential and purpose of humanity in a cosmos far vaster and more intricate than we currently perceive. The journey of discovery continues, inviting us to delve deeper into these enigmatic narratives, to connect the dots between ancient whispers and modern science, and to ultimately confront the breathtaking possibility that the truth about our origins is far stranger and far more profound than we have ever dared to imagine. The revelation of the Anunnaki bloodlines and the 13 kings who ruled before history fundamentally reshapes our understanding of humanity's genesis and subsequent trajectory. It is not an idle conjecture, but a monumental shift in perspective that invites us to abandon the comforting linear narrative of human progress in favor of a far more complex and tantalizing reality. If the evidence, as interpreted from the Sumerian King List and other ancient texts, points to an external, celestial intervention at the very dawn of our civilization, then the implications ripple across every facet of our existence, from our biological makeup to the spiritual yearning that defines us. The kingship that descended from heaven, the impossibly long reigns, the subsequent genetic reduction after the flood. These are not mere anecdotes. They are profound data points suggesting a deliberate, intelligent shaping of humanity. This isn't just about ancient history, it's about our history, the history of every single individual alive today, carrying within them the potential genetic legacy of these pre-Diluvian ancestors. The core revelation is this: humanity may not be an accidental byproduct of random evolutionary forces, but rather a meticulously crafted experiment, a hybrid species with a destiny intertwined with its creators, the Anunnaki. This is not a comfortable truth for many, as it challenges millennia of philosophical and religious thought that places humanity at the apex of creation or as a unique, singular evolutionary outcome. Instead, we become part of a larger cosmic tapestry, an offshoot of an advanced lineage that once directly walked the earth. The existence of these 13 kings before the flood, with their seemingly immortal reigns, posits a golden age, a period of direct, unmediated guidance from what essentially were gods to early man. It was a time when knowledge flowed freely from celestial sources, when the very structure of civilization was designed and implemented by intelligences far superior to our own. The subsequent reduction in lifespans, the withdrawal of direct Anunnaki presence after the flood, signifies a shift, perhaps a test, where humanity was left to navigate its own path, albeit with the foundational genetic and societal blueprints already laid. What this truly means for us today is a question that lingers, unanswered, at the precipice of a new understanding. Are we still under the distant influence of these ancient bloodlines, perhaps unknowingly following an agenda set forth by our creators millennia ago? Do the powerful families, the hidden hands that seem to steer global events, carry within them not just wealth and influence, but an actual genetic legacy that connects them to these 13 primordial rulers? The concept is staggering, suggesting that the fight for freedom, for self-determination, might be a fight against an ancient, inherited destiny. It means that the very structures of power, the systems of control, might be echoes of an original design intended to keep humanity within certain parameters, perhaps to serve a purpose that we are only now beginning to dimly perceive. The idea of free will itself becomes problematic if our very essence, our desires, and our potential are in some way genetically predisposed or subtly guided by an ancient non-human lineage. But this revelation is also one of immense potential. If humanity carries Anunnaki DNA, then within us lies a dormant potential, a capacity for knowledge, longevity, and perhaps even cosmic awareness that we have yet to fully unlock. The quest for self-improvement, for technological advancement, for spiritual enlightenment could be seen as an unconscious drive to reconnect with our higher, celestial heritage. It offers a new framework for understanding genius, intuition, and the inexplicable leaps of human innovation. We are not just earthlings. We are perhaps cosmic hybrids with a destiny far grander and more interconnected than we have ever dared to dream. The story of the Anunnaki bloodlines, therefore, is not merely a tale of a forgotten past, but a profound redefinition of our present and a breathtaking glimpse into our potential future. It challenges us to look within, to look up, and to question everything, as the truth of our origins might be the key to unlocking the next great chapter in the human saga. This content has merely opened a window into an ancient yet profoundly relevant mystery. If this deep dive into the Anunnaki bloodlines and the pre-Diluvian kings has truly opened your mind and sparked a fire of curiosity within you, comment below right now with Shege Ateufing. This helps us understand who is genuinely seeking this deeper knowledge and who is committed to uncovering these profound truths. Be sure to hit the like button on this video to support the meticulous work behind creating such impactful content. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel right now and activate that notification bell, because the upcoming episodes will delve even further into these untold stories, exploring the hidden legacies and the staggering implications that continue to shape our world. Don't miss what's next. Click on the video that's appearing on your screen now, as it offers another crucial piece to this intricate puzzle of our past.